Welcome back to Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. Last time we made our way across the mountains, which is supposed to be the title of this chapter, and avoided falling rocks. The same could not be said of the great and glorious General Boltax, who met his famous great and glorious end. Even though the actual attempt of the chapter that I did killed the boss naturally, the rock death is canon. So now we'll be heading out to chapter 26, which has a very self-explanatory and simple name. Not really sure why they're playing the ominous music for this, but I guess it's because of the reveal that Leanne got kidnapped in the last chapter. In a valley amidst the Mahalt Range, Ike and company are reunited with King Kanagus of Gallia. King Tiban of Phoenicis also arrives, and brings with him a disturbing tale. His words serve notice. There is no time to waste. The final showdown with Ashnard is coming. Between the forces King Kanagus grants them before returning home, and the soldiers King Tiban brings, the Crimean army possesses 3 times the fighting power that it did when it left Bednion. Even so, the Daean forces encamped in the capital are strong, rested, and comparable in number. In addition, the road to the final confrontation is blocked by 2 formidable obstacles: Fort Pinel and Naros Castle. How these 2 tests are faced will mightily affect the course of the war. So before our big castle battle, we're going to have 2 smaller but still pretty big castle battles. Chapter 26, Clash! And that's the entire title. This one was actually referenced in a map in Heroes, though it was called Armies Clash there, and the map was much smaller than what you'll be seeing this time. Meanwhile in Villain Land, won't be long before we actually get here. I would say that was a bad idea on their part, but that was probably Ashnard's goal all along. He wants everyone involved in this war. And yet you keep saying that. The moment the villains say that, as I've always said, you know they're doomed. I don't think we've ever heard of Bertram before. He is one of the 4 riders, and this is why I was explaining earlier with Petrine that I wish he got a bit more screen time, and maybe if Petrine had died earlier, he might have. There are so many traitors in this game, it's insane. The Black Knight didn't completely deny it, though. For now, their goals line up. Alright, that. We might have actually saved Ina's life by defeating Petrine when we did. Meanwhile, back at our camp, I actually really love the tent design here. I wish we actually got, like, battle preparations music here, like this one moment in Radiant Dawn that does something similar. So the opening narration already explained this to us. And now Bastion is cutting in with his flowery language. We can't really afford to waste another year with the Dark God's imminent resurrection at hand. I love the interactions between these three sometimes. So how do we approach this? So with one fort distracted, we won't need to worry about getting attacked in the rear while we're focusing on the other one. Ah yes, the Mongolian strategy. And with that, it's preparations time. Nevany got MVP, which is pretty nice. And we got a decent amount of combat experience there. Speaking of which, though, the first thing... Actually, no, I might want to do info first. Because Tiban's info conversation here is actually a direct lead-on for those plot scenes. You sure you'll be good at reconnaissance, though, considering that Janeth is now with our army? That's true, I mean, you could probably take a crit or two. Tiban is so powerful that even crossbows in Radiant Dawn don't one-shot him, and that is no easy feat for a flyer to achieve. In fact, I think Tiban can take 3 shots from crossbows in that game. And more of this thing. We're about to get a little bit of interesting dialogue, though, and world building. So, it's not just a Heron thing. I think this does come up a couple of times in supports. Of course the dragons have the strongest powers, because in what Fire Emblem game don't they? No, it's very understandable. Your sister's in danger. And that conversation has a pretty depressing end. Always found this base conversation to be a bit strange. It is a good indicator of how much Ike has developed, though. It's also a little bit of a hint as to Chapter 27, but I don't know why it's being given here. And there's actually a base conversation in that chapter that's a more direct hint about this. No, don't do that. This is a Fire Emblem game. Never ever do that unless you're on casual mode. So this is pretty much just basic Fire Emblem tips. This conversation feels more like something you'd get from Grail earlier in the game. But, like I said, it does show Ike's development, the fact that he's able to give this kind of advice to the newer soldiers. Anyway, I guess I can lead on from info into support, so I actually did get Nephany and Khalil B. Most late joining characters tend to support very, very quickly. And this is quite a nice support too. You don't get the big reveal about Khalil until they're A though. You know, I don't think you ever see Nephany without her helmet in this series. Yes, Khalil is totally from the city. Totally. So, like I said, that one's pretty nice. Also, we have Soren and Stefan B, which will be the last support we get for Soren in this playthrough. This is a very short one. It gets the point pretty quickly. It also seems to make a lot more sense if Soren's had an A support with Ike. But this is the main thing revealed here. There's a colony of Branded in the Grand Desert, and Stefan, I believe, is the leader of that colony. And yeah, Soren saying he belongs here makes more sense if he has an A with Ike, like I said. And that's all we get there. Their A doesn't really give all that much extra info either. As for Ranulph, I actually have his B support with Mordecai. And that doesn't make a lot of sense, because tigers are supposed to be incapable of purring, but then again, cats are capable of roaring in this universe, so obviously it doesn't follow real-world logic. This does give a bit of insight into Mordecai. And they're actually justifying his kind of low skill stat as well. That's a nice support too. Kind of surprised Ranulph only has those 3 supports, but other than that, yeah, it's just a few of these supports we unlocked much earlier in the game. I guess there's no real reason for me not to do Mist and Titania, but it's kind of a waste this late into the game. It also might be massive mood whiplash. Oh, I didn't realize I unlocked that. That's interesting. You know, seeing as we're approaching the end of the game, I might as well do every support I can. And yeah, we're about to see something that I talked about earlier. Bastian is in love with Lucia. And she's also very snarky towards him about it. Didn't your words already fail that time? Also, Lucia and Ileana have a support? Didn't realize that. Yeah, you know, I might as well do this one. As I said in the last part, Ike and Titania finally reach an A support now, I think. Or is that chapter 27? Yeah, you're supposed to do this support much, much earlier in the game. Wait a second, I think this support changes if you do it now. Yeah, because this line, of course, would be different if it's just the Grail Mercenaries. So I'm kind of glad that I'm doing this now, because we get to see a dialogue variation. This game has so much attention to detail in the dialogue, even supports change depending on when you do them in the story. I wish more Fire Emblem games would do that. Oh yeah, and this also changes, so that's awesome, I forgot about that. And we're about to attack a fort, so maybe save that till later. Also, we're now in occupied Crimea, so I doubt there are going to be many shops that are concerned with selling clothes. That's actually a pretty nice support, though. I wonder if I'll be able to get them to a B. I might want to save that for getting them to a B. So, that was quite a lot of conversations and supports. So now, I am actually going to save reset for Ike because I want him to gain some more speed here. His strength is pretty close to being capped. It only needs 2 more points. Actually, that's not a bad first level up. Max strength and max defense. Okay, that's fine. So, as long as you have at least speed... Oh yeah, skills max too, nice. So, this is about the point in the game where you want Ike's strength and skill at the very least to be capped. Capped defense helps too, though not if you're using the Wrath strategy. And your speed needs to be at least 24, though more speed does give you a bit of an evasion rate. As you can tell, a certain fight may or may not be coming up. But Ike having capped strength and skill is going to be great here. Now Soren needs to have a little bit of bonus experience. Thankfully I don't need to use any on Nephany or Jill. That I believe is... Yes, it's capped skill and resistance. So we're starting to get a lot of cap stats now. Miss is also cap speed, which is interesting. Forgot that she'd done that. And I guess I can give bonus experience to Gatry. At this point, I might want to hold off on giving bonus experience to Titania, because I doubt she's going to get much in the way of transfer bonuses. Gatry's defense has been lagging behind a little bit, but he does have a few more levels to grow. Okay, so there's that, and like I said, Titania and Stefan I'm not really going to be wanting to give transfer bonuses to, so... I only have enough bonus experience for 1 more level up on someone. The question is whether I save it, and like hope that I get enough experience during this chapter, or whether I do it now. It'll probably make no difference either way. Okay, magic is nice. I really want you to cap speed, though. But you're getting close to cap magic, I believe. And that should be all in that regard. So, let's see, weapons. Ike might as well keep the Sonic Sword. Mist. Okay, Mist will definitely need more staves for this. I'll need Restore because there is a Sleep Staff Bishop in this upcoming chapter. Let's see. I'm actually running out of physic. Do have a few more, though. Okay, you definitely need weapons. Well, you broke your silver lance. Then again, you fought most of the enemies in the last chapter. Actually, might as well just take a spear. How's your magic? Now, the flame lance will only have 20 attack power for you, which is not that good. Jill probably needs a better throwing axe that isn't the bolt axe. Yeah, you can go ahead and take Wyvern back. Soren should be okay for now. Oh, you should have equipped the mage band while I was leveling you up. That was dumb. Don't know why you still have the Laguz Guard equipped. Now, I'm going to need that rescue staff soon, but not just yet. Also, convoy that knife, because you won't be needing it. Let me take that and that, just in case we need more throwing lances. Gatry will... He probably needs a better javelin. I think you're currently okay on weapons. Stefan is mostly okay on weapons, though. You could probably use a better... Yeah, let's just give you one of the silver swords. And Joffrey might want to take some stuff, because you have a lot of room for filler units in this chapter. So people like Joffrey, maybe even Har. Har could probably take some things. Go ahead and take that. And where he is, he's probably at the bottom. Yeah, there's Largo. He's already got some pretty good weapons to start with, but you might as well take a poleaxe, and do I have any spare vulneraries? Yes, I do. Good. Because you tend to die quickly. You just take basic wind, because I might be using you too. I might want to bring you just for support, so you would need a weapon in that case. Let's just take a normal steel sword. Maybe a long sword. Actually, I just realized, before we start this chapter, I might want to make use of the forge. Because we're so close to the end, now we might as well forge as many weapons as we can, so... I don't think we've forged a silver axe yet, though a forged hand axe might be more useful in the long run. Let me just think. I guess a forged silver axe might not be a terrible idea. And that's probably fine. It just hit me, I now know what to name this. A reference to the mighty Zeganator. Guess in that case we'll make it purple. I think I'll be saving this for the trial maps, though. You know, just because it's a waste of skill lying around, and because I'm using Ranulf here anyway, I might as well. Ranulf can actually smite Jill, I've just found out, so this might come in handy. Hi, Elincia, why are you suddenly looking like that? Time for something that has been a very long time coming. This line implies Pegasi lived for a very long time. Of course you would be. We had a bit of foreshadowing to this back in Chapter 5 when Elincia was packing with the Grail mercenaries. And Bastion is going to go on one of his epic speeches again. So she's alluding to something here that is a bit of a problem. But this is one thing I will say, this story has been just as much about Elincia's development as it has been about Ike's, and this is really a culmination of all of that. Finally, Elincia actually gets to fight, she actually gets to help everyone. No longer is she staying on the sidelines, and she's become so much stronger over the course of the journey, and you'll be seeing that when we get to the final chapter. And it's a great lead up into how she is in Radiant Dawn. She is one of my favourite characters in that game. So yes, Elincia can heal as well as fight. I should mention that Elincia's fighting ability is very heavily affected if any of her retainers have died. So, I'll be explaining that once we get to her bio. Also a very good line from Bastion coming up. This is one of my favourite Bastion lines. Elincia fights and Crimea wins the day. And so, here we are. You might notice all enemies are promoted now, and there's a lot of them. And there's Bertram, and that's all we'll be getting out of him before the chapter begins. This is a big, wide open, not a lot of terrain, so this is mostly just gonna be fighting. I can only dread to imagine how many enemies there are on Maniac mode here. Yeah, there are going to be reinforcements here too. And that's all we get for now, but I need to show something here. So here's Elincia. Elincia has the renewal skill, and in the Japanese version, she was one of only 2 characters who the renewal skill worked on, thus making it completely useless. An A rank in staves, and this. Elincia only has this sword if Lucia, Bastion, and Joffrey are all alive. If even one of them is dead, she'll just join with a slim sword instead. And that makes her a lot worse. Not that she's really that good for fighting, but this is a great weapon. Also, Elincia is forced this map, and there's something very unique about her. If we check conditions, Elincia dying is a game over, just like Ike. From this chapter on, deploying her will be optional, so in some ways, deploying her is actually a bad thing, because it means you have one extra character who can't die. But how useful is Elincia? Well, let's run the bio first. Elincia is only level 1. Also, it's a game over if she dies, so in chapters where it's optional to deploy her, doing so gives you an extra failure condition. And as she's level 1, she'll most likely die to the majority of enemies at this point. But despite that, Elincia is actually pretty useful. Her class, Princess Crimea, is unique to her, and it's essentially the same as Mist's promoted class, only flying. This makes her the only mounted healer in the game next to Mist, and considering how good mounted units and especially flyers are in this game, that's a very big thing. But the most useful thing about Elincia is that she starts with an A rank in staves, letting her use everything except the Ashura staff right from the get-go. This makes her a fantastic filler unit in the later chapters, because not only can she act as a secondary healer, but she can also combine her great movement with the rescue staff to help you cross maps in no time at all. Elincia can fill these roles without requiring any level ups at all. And let's be honest, Elincia is not going to be leveling up much unless you hoarded bonus experience up until now and just threw thousands of it at her. This is pretty much the only way to make her at least slightly viable in combat, and it's a shame because Elincia has a fantastic personal weapon. Amity is effectively an infinite use brave sword. There are plenty of characters who'd kill for something like that, but sadly it's restricted to someone who's extremely awful at combat at base, and requires tons of bonus experience to ever be good at combat, and even then she's not all that great. She's very similar to Mist. She does have an 80% magic growth though, but it's kind of let down by her magic cap being a little low. In Radiant Dawn though, oh boy, Elincia is amazing with Amity and Radiant Dawn, but we'll get to that much later. For now, Elincia is an amazing staff bot though. Oh right, Elincia also has Renewal. It says something about how useful I think that skill is that I forgot to mention that entirely. It restores 10% of your max HP at the start of every turn. Not a great skill and definitely not worth 15 capacity, but seeing as you really don't want Elincia taking damage in the first place, this skill is unlikely to ever do anything. So with that, you might notice we have a massive number of deployment slots. And our deployment pattern looks kind of like, I feel like maybe it's the Crimea Emblem or something. Sort of looks like a Space Invader, actually, from here. But anyway, I might as well show off the map now, because, believe me, I'm going to need all the time in the next video that I can get. It's most likely going to go on for very, very long. So, let me go over the map now. We have a whole bunch of Paladins up here, on a Drawable Steel Sword. We have a Sage over here with Meteor. We have a big clump of Warriors. We have some Swordmasters down here, some Feral ones, including some, kind of strong Tigers. A few Generals here, Snipe with a Lagoo's Bow, pretty high resistance Bishop, and a Physics Staff to steal if you want to bring Volk here, although, having more than 13 speed is easy on him. More of these guys. This one has a Sleep Staff, you'll need to really be careful of that. Also, a whole bunch of reinforcements are going to eventually spawn from up here. More Paladins. More Feral ones, and the boss, Bertram. He's essentially a slightly stronger version of Petrine in pretty much every respect, because just as she had a magical weapon, he does too. He has the Rune Sword. This is light magic based, and it drains HP in addition to dealing magical damage and having range, so it's a pretty dangerous weapon. It's also drawable, so you want to make sure that you get it quickly, not run down too many uses. Like Petrine, he also has the Daunt skill, so you have 5 less critical and 5 less hit around him. Also an elixir, but most likely one of his troops is going to steal that. Now, there's a lot of interesting things about Bertram, but explaining any more would probably be spoilers. I'll just say there are some hints in this game as to Bertram's identity, but to talk about any of them would just give it away entirely. So, who am I going to bring? Obviously my main party is a given. As for everyone else, might really only be good for shoving. Khalil might be useful here. And I am bringing Volk, so yeah, I will be able to steal some Physics Staves. Toronu and Tanith are also great to bring here. In fact, I might want to kick out someone and bring Tanith. As awesome as Har is, I feel like Tanith's You know what? I might not want to summon Tanith's reinforcements because they'll take away experience. But yeah, I want to bring these 3. Joffrey makes for a pretty great filler unit, as does Toronu here. Toronu is pretty effective too. And let's just go ahead and reposition. So, I like to have a flyer run in and take out the Meteor guy quickly. Does mean Jill will be getting even more experience from this chapter than she I mean, Jill has enough experience as it is, but she'll be probably getting even more. My sword users are going to go ahead and fight these warriors, although annoyingly I can't position Ike any further forward. You're going to be part of my rear guard, you 3. I'll need Volk on hand to steal stuff. Gatry should start as far forward as he possibly can be. Rayson should probably start kind of far forward. Soren's there. Mist is, you know, maybe... Actually, no, Soren will follow Ike up to these warriors, because that's where Ike's going to be going. And... yeah, I guess I'll send Nephany and Gatry around that way. Stefan up to fight the warriors. This should be a pretty good setup, so I'm going to save, and then we'll go to the chapter itself, which I am warning you again, this one's going to be long.